All right, geopolitics, Asia. Now, what I'm about to explain is important to the people in the United States as well as to the people in Japan and the rest of Asia and the commies in China. Allow me. There's a group of islands in Asia in the South China Sea called the Senkaku Islands that belong to Japan, or it's off of Okinawa. Those islands are as much a part of Japan as Okinawa is, as the Aleutian Islands in Alaska are to the United States, as Manhattan Island in New York City is to the United States. Now, why do I bring up those two examples? Well, because the commies of late have come out and said, the Senkaku Islands belong to us because we have old maps. See, those old maps show us that they belong to us. Well, I could show you old Russian maps where the Aleutians belong to the Russians. I could show you Dutch maps where the Manhattan Island belonged to the Netherlands until the point where the Duke of York from England threw them out. The Key West, those islands, they belonged to Spain at one time. So never mind with your old maps. Let's talk today or recent history. World War II is concluded. Japan becomes an occupied nation by the United States, occupied Japan. The Senkaku Islands was part of the American occupation of Japan. China never said anything about that. When the communists came into power, we were still an occupying force in Japan. Mao Zedong never said anything about that. We used the islands as a bombing range. The United States Air Force used one or two of those islands as bombing practice. The commies never said, hey, get off those islands. Those are our islands and stop bombing Chinese territory. Never said anything. Around 1968 or 69, it's discovered they have oil and gas deposits off those islands. That's when the commies woke up and said, wait a minute, we got old maps over here. Those are our islands. They don't belong to Japan. You understand that? Senkaku, China, not Japan. Well, recently, those islands have come into conflict because of commie aggressive behavior. They have been sending in military survey vessels to violate Japanese territorial waters. They recently sent in a military plane to violate Japanese airspace. And then recently, the commies allowed the peasants to uprise and riot against Japanese businesses and factories, destroying them. See, to the commies, they used the Japanese as a scapegoat. The peasants are unhappy with the commie government, so rather than vent their hate towards the commies said, hey, look at those people over there, the Japanese, stealing our islands. So the peasants rose up, vented their anger, not against the commies, but against the Japanese. The Japanese TV station recently reported, NHK, that the peasants were asked if they knew where the Senkaku Islands were. Had no idea. All they knew is they had to be angry at the scapegoat to release the anger from the government. Hey, very simple. Now this is a double-edged sword the commies are dealing with. Alright, they satisfied the peasants by letting them release some anger towards the Japanese. While they're committing these incursions into Japanese territory, the political party in power in Japan was the Democratic Party of Japan. They handled it rather passively. Now, that was right and that was wrong, 50-50, because you could have handled it both ways, and both ways would have been correct from a Japanese perspective. However, many of the Japanese people were upset with that. So, come the recent elections, they elected a conservative party called the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan. This party said that they would be more assertive in stopping commie aggression. Now, that wasn't the only reason why they were elected. There's a whole host of other reasons. But that was one of the reasons also. So now we have a political party in power in Japan that's vowed to be more assertive and stop commie aggression into their territory. So they have to keep their promise to satisfy the constituency. The commies, on the other hand, have to keep the hate towards Japan to keep the peasants diverted from what's going on in Beijing. Now, if the commies take this incursion up a few notches and Japan sends its navy to block it, let me tell you about the Japanese Navy. It's the third, fourth, or second largest navy in the world. It's up there, way on the top. It's a formidable navy. It's not filled with rust bucket or garbage scows built by commies. It's not had their vessels armed with Soviet rejects. The training that takes place with the Japanese Navy, you know who they train with? The largest navy in the world. The most advanced navy in the world. The United States Navy. The United States has stated recently a few times that we have a defense treaty with Japan, and the Senkaku Islands is part of that defense treaty, meaning if the commies invade and attack the Senkaku Islands, the United States is bound by treaty to help the Japanese defend those islands, even though I don't think the Japanese would need our help militarily, probably in other areas. So there's a deterrent there for the commies not to get aggressive. Number one, because the United States supported the Japanese. Number two, because of the Conservative Party in power in Japan. But however, the commies need to keep the peasants satisfied and diverted. In addition, if the commies engage in a flashpoint in the Senkaku Islands, that will hurt the economy of China because of the economic ties between the two nations. So now, if they engage in a flashpoint to satisfy the peasants, they'll lose millions of jobs in their economy. Now you have another group that will riot and protest for losing their jobs. A double-edged sword the commies are dealing with. See? Very simple. So now you know about the Senkaku, its potential flashpoint, and you know about the commies in China scapegoating. Alright, folks. We'll see you. God bless you. God bless America. And God bless the nation you happen to be in. And dear God, be with our trusted allies and friends, Japan, the Japanese people, Nihon Koku. See ya.